Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to the fourth webinar of Palestine Insights, رؤية فلسطين, organized by the Arab Reform Initiative. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for your interest about talking about Palestine. And in this webinar of the series of Palestine Insights organized by the Arab Reform Initiative. Today, we will be discussing the Arab League proposal for the reconstruction of Gaza, and in particular, what place and role for the Palestinians in that plan. My name is Ala Tartir, and I'm the co-chair of the board of the Arab Reform Initiative, and also a policy analyst and program advisor to Al-Shabaka, the Palestinian Policy Network. And it's a pleasure to be here today and to moderate this panel with fantastic speakers that we have with us. I will introduce them briefly. We have Omar Shaban, who's a non-resident fellow of the Arab Reform Initiative, and also the director and CEO of the paving in Gaza. And also we have Inas Abdelrazak, who's the co-director of the Palestine Institute for Public Diplomacy and the policy analyst with Al-Shabaka, the Palestinian Policy Network. And we have Abdelhadi Lajleh, who is Palestinian social and political scientist, as well as a non-resident fellow of the Arab Reform Initiative. I wished we were having this conversation at better times and in better conditions at a better moment, and that we were a little bit closer and inching towards a plan of reconstruction of Gaza and implementation of a plan. But unfortunately, but not surprisingly, we're not there yet. We're far from it. Israel decided otherwise by continuing its brutality, by continuing its genocidal war against the Palestinians in Gaza and overall, and normalizing displacements elsewhere in the West Bank. And that is a continuation of what it does at best. So we're not at the best moment, and we're reaching the stage because accountability is missing. And when accountability is missing, Israel has the free hand to continue in doing what it's doing. Global powers and regional powers are not able to stop Israel from continuing its war. And then the big question is, can then they implement a reconstruction plan if they cannot stop the war in the first place? Yet Palestinians remain steadfast in their land, rooted in their land, with so much pain and so much loss there. And this is something that we will tackle throughout this conversation that we have today. And also, we cannot start talking about reconstruction plans while massacres keep going, while genocide is unfolding in front of our eyes. And we cannot talk about reconstructions while this is happening. But it's a must that we discuss this. And no matter how fancy the plans are and how they look, they will all fall short and will fail the Palestinians if they don't address the root causes of what we're seeing today, if they don't address the root causes of the issues, and if they are not inclusive, and importantly, if they are not led by the Palestinians and driven by them. And I would even argue that if they are not an outcome of a national dialogue. So I'm putting these 4 points as starter when we talk about that. But also, and here let me remind you that that there is an Arabic translation, so please choose the Arabic translation icon from the bottom of the screen. But before I move to our speakers, let me briefly mention that although we're focusing today on the Arab League plan and the proposal by the Arab League, but out there are many plans for reconstructing Gaza. I counted at least 12 of these plans, and these are 12 published plans. And there are many others that are not published. And there are other plans that they are for the day after. And there are other plans or work that supports these different plans. But I'm talking here about the plans that you can call post-war reconstruction plan. We have at least 12. That's a lot, considering that these plans tend to bring together so many people and so many experts and so many concerned actors to come up with these different plans. But again, if we look at the different plans, we can look at them through different lenses, and we can categorize them in different categories, because they are not all there to serve the Palestinians, meaning bringing the Palestinians closer to freedom and self-determination. Many of these plans contradict with each other. Other plans have other objectives rather than reconstructing Gaza. So without going into lots of details, I can basically categorize these 12 plans or so into 5 categories. One category are the plans that aims to erase the Palestinians, aims to displace these Palestinians under the banner of reconstructing Gaza. And here I'm talking about the US so-called plan, what Trump proposal that is on the table, and also the Israel 2035 plan. So this is one category. Again, it is post-war reconstruction, but in this strange world, this is becoming a category to be entertained as a post-war reconstruction. A second category of plans comes from US think tanks, research institutions, military establishments, but also other institutions that promote economic peace as an approach to solve the so-called Palestinian-Israeli conflicts. Here I'm talking about plans coming from Rand corporations, for example, Wilson Center, Palestine Emerging Portland Trust, and so on. That's another category of plans. There is another category, which is more, we can call them the technical ones. And the big one that is the one that was launched by the World Bank and the EU and the UN with the famous figure of the $53 billion. Look at it and you see, again, another one that is apolitical and decontextualized in so many ways. But again, it is technical in its nature. And that tend to be in the center of the many plans because it's coming with the figures. It's coming with big institutions behind it and big teams behind it. So that's a third category. A fourth category, it's more the official one, let's say, which is the Arab League in particular here, and also the plan by the Palestinian Authority. And we will focus throughout this conversation on the Arab League one in particular. And finally, and importantly, we have other plans that they are Palestinian-led, plans that are still in the making or being already launched. And there are different ones from the Phoenix Plan, El Finiq, to a call by the different Palestinian civil society, like the Palestinian NGO network with the different parameters, and also a recent one that was launched in Gaza, which called Gaza Decides. These are just examples. And important consideration to keep in mind when we look at these different plans, that they need to be looked at through different lenses and through different categories. But what we would like to focus on today is the Arab League plan, the plan that was launched recently in response to the American plan, to the Trump call. And it's centered around how we can reconstruct Gaza while keeping the Palestinians there. But is that enough? In this sense, can this plan be implemented? I mean, there are so many questions that we can ask about this plan, and I will put just few of them here, and we can discuss them throughout the conversation. Is it truly an Arab League plan, meaning all the Arab countries are behind it and support it? Or is it more an Egyptian plan? And can we take the Arab bloc as one bloc? Recently, over the past couple of days, we're hearing about some actors in the Arab world, like the United Arab Emirates, going to lobby the Americans to reject this plan. Now, we will see how true and to what extent that is, but we're already seeing cracks in the bloc, if you like, there about the Arab plan, and without really implementing it. But for me, fundamentally, do we take the Arab League by itself seriously enough? Didn't it fail the Palestinians and many Arab nations very dramatically over the many decades? I remember, I'm talking here about myself, when we talk about the Arab League, we honestly laughed because we didn't know to what extent the Arab League can deliver. And here I'm not trying to be too critical, but I'm trying to bring the voices of the people to the screen here. So why should we believe the Arab League that they can implement? How this is different than other plans? Who's holding the Arab League accountable if they cannot deliver? But importantly, can they really deliver or not? If they cannot bring the different actors together, if they cannot stop the war, how they can deliver? And for me, fundamentally, this Arab League plan is taking the de facto situation that Israel created as its starting point. Just look at the map and the different categories in the map. You see that buffer zone is still a buffer zone that is not used by the Palestinians as a way to claim that space, but rather to keep that space open and just squeeze the Palestinians in a more and more shrinking space. So many issues, so many questions that can be discussed, but I just want to put these quick reflections on the table. And sorry for taking some time here before moving to our speakers that I would like to have this conversation with at the moment. And maybe the first question that I would like to ask, and even before we start here talking about the Arab League proposal for the reconstruction of Gaza, and in particular, again, what place and role for Palestinians. Omar, maybe I will start with you here. How can we discuss reconstruction plans while the genocide is still unfolding in different shapes and different forms? Can you help us in just reconciling that? We're talking about a reconstruction plan while the war and the is still unfolding there and it's not stopped. And since over the past 3 days, we have over 430 Palestinians killed by Israel. How can we talk about reconstruction?
First of all, thank you very much, Ala. Thank you very much, Nadeem, for the invitation. I'm very happy to be with my colleague Inas and Abdel Hadi. And I will try my best to be short and to highlight some of the issue. I think this is a very valid question, but there are 3 reasons. One of them that those plans, the 12-1, might be more than 12-1. Some of them, they were developed by consultant firm, by a private organization who are looking for the reconstruction as a business, as a matter of business. They want to be ready and they want to promote it so they can make money, not like the previous time. So it's not about they caring about us, but it's about an opportunity to make a lot of money, especially the estimated funding needed for the reconstruction is a lot. Talk about $50 billion, $60 billion, World Bank, latest talk about $30 billion. Second, we have to work. Despite the fact that the Palestinian Authority has developed many versions of the reconstruction plan, they keep it changing according to the development. So we have to be ready because part of our responsibility. Third, which goes in line with the topic of today, the Arab need to be ready for the plan. The Arab wanted to say or to prove that we are here, we have our plan, we have our document, we fill the vacuum, which I think one of the positive aspects of that. So I want to go from this question to the first one. Yes, the Egyptian plan, which becomes the Arab plan, it came as a political document. This is my definition into it. It's a political document under economic title, but it was not intended to be implemented tomorrow. It came to counterpart with the Trump plan, which I think it succeeded to some extent to build the vacuum. The Arab wanted to say with Trump, we are here, we can do the reconstruction in Gaza while keeping the people there. So this is the political objective of the plan, but far away from the technical aspect, which we'll talk about it. And I think the Arab plan, it came to fill the vacuum. We heard about many plans. I will tell you something before I close. There was a plan that was presented in London, I think, in November 23, just 2 months after the war. And before it about reconstruction of Gaza. And the four speaker, all of them names Alex, John, Michael, and Johanna, something like that, even no Arab. So some of this plan did not engage the Arab, did not engage the Palestinian, did not engage the Gazan, which makes the Gazan people very, very sad and very angry. And I think all the plan from A to Z, they did not engage the Palestinian people, NGOs, civil society to adequate degree. Thank you.
Thank you, Omar, for that. I would like to move to Inas and Abdelhadi for reflections on this. Again, on the question of how can we talk about reconstruction while the war is still on. And then I come back in more details, Omar, about the Arab League plan in particular. Inas, reflection from your side on this overall tension, if you like.
Thank you, Ala, and thank you to the Arab Reform Initiative for inviting me. So my view of the plan is mainly criticism. However, I will start with the very few positive points that I see, and I think it was actually reminded by Omar, so as not to throw the baby with the bathwater, as we say. I think one of the only positive points here is indeed that at least the Arab states did something, which was not a given the past normalization, the current normalization efforts. At least they took some political will to signal some of the political bases and the very, minimum threshold, which is not preventing ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. And also, I think the plan is clear that it's not foreseeing Israel control over Gaza. However, I would say that indeed, with the genocide ongoing and the urgency, we need to think both as this kind of day after, what we have called day after plans, actually very much impacts the political dynamics and the political powers behind the negotiations for a ceasefire and an end to the genocide. So I think within the current discussions that are happening, and this is what happened with the Arab League discussions and the plan put forward, is that it tremendously impacts how can we break that cycle of destruction and genocide on the Palestinians. And unfortunately, what we're seeing is that the political dynamics behind it are unfortunately going to more consolidate the current situation of Israeli occupation and control, and of lack of Palestinian legitimacy and political leadership that is, going to consolidate the control and the power in the hands of very few Palestinian leaders who have completely lost legitimacy of the majority, the very vast majority of the Palestinian society and people. So I think this is what we need to look at, because eventually looking at what the political process towards ending the genocide and then relief, recovery, and reconstruction are all tied together. And very key questions here emerge that I think we're going to talk about. What is the, trying to exclude Hamas from any decision-making, any role, which is very dangerous because, again, Hamas is part and parcel of the Palestinian political fabric. And I think a lot of the questions related to what happens to armed resistance, and, that includes then what's happening in the West Bank. Are these plans, and I think they are, talking about fragmenting even further the Palestinian, issue, because again, if we're only now going to frame the political processes around Gaza, that means it consolidates the fragmentation with the rest of Palestine and breaks the territorial integrity. The other, I think, problem is is that indeed it gives in the hands, it's de facto accepting that the PA would be in control and the PA as it is. So paying lip service to reform and all other kinds of, you know, things that we've been hearing in the past, but we know that the system is being broken. And I think on the technical aspect then that we can discuss, and I think we'll discuss, is that indeed no Palestinians were consulted, and I think the Palestinian-led plans have been either, you know, labeled as Hamas plans or eventually, you know, the Egyptian plan or the Arab League plan is really trying to consolidate the geography of the occupation with the buffer zones, etc. So I think before we go into technicalities, we really need to look at the power dynamics, and I'm afraid that the Arab League is, you know, going to play into the fragmentation and the lack of political horizon, which is really the Palestinian, I think, political unity is at the center of any sort of plan or process to either fail or open path for Palestinian self-determination.
We will come and ask to these questions of internal Palestinian political issues and the implications of that on any kinds of reconstruction plan and the day after. But Abdelhadi, basically, what is good about this Arab League plan and what is not good about it from your perspective?
Thank you very much, Ala, and thanks for Arab Reform Initiative. And this is an important seminar, I think. Let me say 3 good things and 3 bad things, or shortcomings of the plan, because I wouldn't say that they are bad things, because there hasn't been a bad thing, because this whole plan, as Omar said before, it's a political, it's a political tool. It came out of the Egyptians and the Jordanians' fear of Trump's and Israel plan to ethnically cleanse the Palestinians in Gaza. But the first good is it's the Palestinian ownership. Although this plan has somehow a need or an international oversight or Arab oversight, there is still they emphasize the Palestinian ownership of the plan, of the reconstruction of Gaza Strip. And this is an important aspect because for a long time, most of the post-conflict reconstruction that happens in Gaza was so and so. And then the second one is it avoid ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians in Gaza, like Trump and Netanyahu and his fascist government in Israel actually planning for ethnically cleanse the Palestinians in Gaza, but without a clear plan from the Arab side. That would have been there would have been a possibility that Trump and Netanyahu would be pushing more and more internationally for this. They are not stopping at this stage, but it wouldn't have been the same as well. And the third one is the international funding mechanism, and here it's very important as well because most of international donors have said from the beginning, we are not going to put $1 without political solution. But with the Arab plan, there was a clear international funding mechanism for this plan. Having said that, I think these 3 aspects are important and can be seen as a positive indicators and positive ways if this plan come to reality. But ahead of the positive things, there is always shortcomings, and the plan I would say somehow in some aspects, it can be a fantasy. And why? One, because we have a political challenge and legitimacy issue. Who is going to govern? What is the role of Hamas? That's some important question, like Ines said that before. And this is Israel occupation. Israel becoming not only occupation, but apartheid and settler colonialism. So it's becoming a debatable thing. Like, what is the solution? Without a political will, without political solution, this will. The second one, in short, is the security and military oversight risk here. And there is peacekeeping mechanism, but who are those? Where they come from? How they will interact, military-civilian relationships within the Gaza Strip. Having said that, the Gaza Strip is really is a unique society in many ways, especially with the resistance and 80 or 75% refugees. And the last one, in short, the risk here, which I see it, this plan And with the political challenge of Israel continuous occupation and lack of willingness to rebuild Gaza, the temporary housing and temporary buildings can become permanent. And the plan didn't actually to walk the talk through this in this time. That's what I think, yeah.
Thank you, Abdelhadi, for these three positives, three negatives, and certainly we can discuss them further, because how these questions of Palestinian ownership will translate. When you say, okay, you perceive this plan that it has Palestinian ownership, how do we break that down? How do we illustrate that? That there is a clear international funding mechanisms. Again, what does that mean? The argument was that there will be another summit, another conference in Cairo to gather these money and then start doing it. Will that take place or not? But we're not there yet. Omar, I want to come back to you. So shall we expect that this plan will be implemented? Do you think it will be implemented as is? Do you think it will be only partially implemented, or not implemented at all, and it will only be that political statement, political declaration that we argue as Arabs that it is possible to reconstruct Gaza while the Palestinians are there? Would it go to the next stage and be operational on the ground? Omar, can you hear me? Yeah.
Thank you very much again, and I will try to answer a question and some other question. First of all, Egypt is calling for a donors conference to be held in late of April, early May. Foreign Minister of Egypt has confirmed that this plan has been adopted and validated by many countries. The Arab Summit was held in Cairo on 4th of March, was attended by all the Arabs, and there were Guterres and the EU. So Egypt has been succeeding in mobilizing some Arab effort and international plan. Very important thing that with the press release of the Arab Summit. And I think the press release has some answers, because I was asked about it and I did talk about it, responding to your Abdelhadi comment. Yes, the plan itself is a technical document. It doesn't say anything about the governors, doesn't say anything about the police, doesn't say anything about Hamas. In the press release, it does have some reference to this point. So we need to make the link. Now, when we asked it here, we were told this plan should not have all the answer to all the questions, which I think, yes, the plan is more technical, but it has a political objective. Third, this plan needs to be developed because the war, the genocide, the destruction is going. And the plan itself, the Egyptian plan, adopted the latest report of the World Bank when they said $3 billion for the early recovery, for the relief, 30 million for the reconstruction, and the 20 billion for the development. So we talk about $51 billion. One of the things that we need to notice, Ala, is the donors. Who's going to pledge such a huge money, and for how long? In the Arab Summit, there were 6 countries did not attend at the top level. Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia, with respect to this country, but there are other 2 major, Saudi Arabia and Emirates. So the question was why the MBS and MBZ did not attend the meeting. We didn't know, but some speculation here and there said they were not happy about that the plan did not mention clearly that Hamas need to be out. But of course, the Egyptian owners, Hamas as a movement, or as Hamas a public servant, we know that nothing can be done in Gaza without them. And this is part of my file when I was working on the reconciliation and all that. There are 40,000 employees, and the public servant in Gaza was recruited by Hamas government, by Hamas de facto authority. Nothing can be done without Gaza, without them, not only without them, without them, without the Palestinians who were paid by the Palestinian Authority and were asked to sit at home since 2007, and many of those who left to Cairo. In us, there are 120,000 Palestinians left Gaza to Cairo, and they represent all the classes. In all our meetings here and there in Europe, in America, in Cairo, we said nothing can be done in Gaza for reconstruction, for stability, for security, without allowing people to go back. Because I don't want to go on more the statistics, but there are thousands of Palestinians in Cairo here. They are continuing to work, like myself, but we need to go back to be part of our building. So the reconstruction should have other components: crossing, money, support, and the international adaptation. So these are not a small thing, but these are other aspects that we should take into consideration. But what I can say that the plan that was developed by Egypt in coordination with the Palestinian Authority, last week we had a session, Balthink and Mass, we had a session we hosted while Zakud was the Minister of Planning, and he made it clearly that the Palestinian plan became the Arab plan. So they stopped to call it Palestinian plan or the Arab or the Egyptian plan, they call it the Arab plan, because there was coordination between the two authorities. But both the plan, which I will go with one of the shortcomings with Abdul Hadi, did not make enough consultation with the people. Surprisingly, most of the plan, which I make, you remember my article with Shabaka a couple of years ago, all the plan are written in English. Most of the plan are in English, as if we are a member of the Commonwealth. The plan should be in Arabic. The only version in Arabic is the Egyptian Arabic plan. Thank you.
Thanks, Omar. I mean, I think there is something there that we need to problematize further, that the Egyptian or Arab plan is the Palestinian plan. I don't take that as, as granted or as a fact, because it is a Palestinian plan. If you look at the different sources that the Arab League plan sourced or just referred to, the Palestinian Authority one was one of them, but they refer to other ones related to UN and other research institutions and think tanks. But there are, as I started earlier in the conversation, there are many other Palestinian plans or attempts to create a plan that they didn't make it to this Arab League plan. And that's the question why I also argued that, in theory, at least theoretically, this should be an outcome of a national dialogue. You went spot on by saying that the Hamas is there, and there is a need to do business with Hamas in order to make any plan work. And this is not the case, or not really spelled out very clearly, because that is a very clear message of confrontation. Because reconstruction and the plan of reconstruction will mean, by definition, there is a certain level of confrontation with the Israeli vision, with the American visions, with the European visions, with other Arab countries' visions. And it's not really linear and straightforward equation. So, and that is in the core, as Inas mentioned. What do you do with the armed resistance group? What do you do with the arms there? What do you do with Hamas presence there? And it's not, we cannot ignore that. But Abdelhadi, I want to come back to you because you also raised your hand, but also I want to come back to the question of Hamas in particular, and the unity of the Arab bloc behind this plan. And Omar, I will come back to you, and Inas too. And I see many questions already coming in. So dear audience, please keep sending your questions. I promise we'll get to tackle a number of these questions. And Abdelhadi, I move to you.
Actually, I raised my hand by mistake, but I can I can give it a shot here. No, I totally agree with you, and Omar said a lot, but I also don't agree that it's the Palestinian Authority plan. If you read the plan very carefully, if you are from Gaza, you would realize that there are some aspects of the plan that it's really like, if a real Gazan read this plan, like, why should I care about this? I mean, like, for example, I give you one example of this: education. Universities actually mentioned only once in the whole plan with a very fast. Like there is no clear plan for reconstruction of education in Gaza, which is the most valuable thing, which Gazans actually care more about as after food and humanitarian aid. So I think the plan in many ways it was Egyptian plan to be honest, and maybe some contributions from the Palestinian Authority were made, but of course I think that's the one included in designing this plan. They don't know much about Gaza. And this reminds me exactly of the Oslo Accord, number one, when they brought like a West Bank map, is really small map to the Palestinian negotiators who are not from Gaza, and the Gaza Strip in a big map. That's and it's a joke that these kind of things happens in 2025.
Omar, I want to come back to you because you said you have some answers there, but building on what Abdelhadi mentioned. So how is this plan perceived in Gaza? You know, when you talk to friends, family, colleagues, network, the consultation that you've been doing at PalThink with many other organizations expose you to many different circles there. What is the general feeling that about this plan in particular?
Thank you very much again. And also, this is very important questions. The perception, and the feeling, and the attitude, and the conclusion of the Gazan at Egypt has been growing positively in the past couple of months. The Gazan who look for rescuing, they fed up with everybody. The international community, they are frustrated by the Palestinian Authority. They are frustrated by the US. Of course, US is part of the attacks and the genocide in Gaza. And they were monitoring the Egyptian effort. So even those who were not happy with the Egypt rule in the past years, they become the only, Egypt is the only country who can take us out of this war. And if you look at the social media, you can see this very clearly. So in Gaza, people make the link between the political rule, the security rule of Cairo with the plan. So the plan serves the perception of Egypt as a country who want to stop the war. If you look at the Egyptian security monitor who were deployed to Gaza and how they were treated by the people and how themselves were dealing with the people who were passing from the south to the north, it was very warm. And there were some videos where the Egyptian security in Gaza were talking nicely to the people, allowing them to move within their mandate. In the other level, the more elite level or the more level among us here in Cairo, we were not so happy because there was no consultation, not only with us, but me as a specialist in reconstruction or think tank, but even with the contractor who are there, with other institutions who are there, having in mind at the same time, there was an announcement by the Syndicate of Engineers of Egypt, the Egyptian Syndicate of Egypt. They said, we have a plan. And it was like a surprise to us. And they, under some communication from me and from others, they organized a session where some of the Palestinian private sector were invited to attend the meeting with the Egyptian Syndicate, but with very little consultation. It was like official thing. So in terms of participation, no, we are not happy. But in terms of the political rule of the plan, this is my conclusion. Not my conclusion. It's my assessment to the plan. It's a political document. It has a political. It is an economic document, but it has a political dimension. Because as Abdelhadi said, if we look at the plan, it's 91 pages. It doesn't include the pulse of the people. It's a big effort, but it seemed that it was done by a group of professors who live here and there would have nice picture, but it didn't bring into the plan key issues like education, about environment, how they want to deal with the environment, how to do with the rubble. There are 50 million tons of rubble. They need 10 to 15 years. In the plan, for example, I will finish here. In the plan suggested 7 buffer zone where the people can go and stay there for until their neighborhood are built. 7 neighborhood without saying, they said north, south, but without identifying this area exactly. And if you say about 7, how you can squeeze 2 million people in seven buffer zone? You mean 300,000 people in one area? How many tenant house? So they did not look into details. I think it needs further annexation like any plan, Annex 1, Annex 2, Annex 3, Annex 4. But the plan by itself, it serves some of the objective, but of course is not complete document.
But these are not only details. I mean, for me, these are some fundamental issues. If it's not on, and here I know Inas and Abdelhadi want to come in, but also let me bring a question from Dr. Hassan Abou-Lebda here. Dr. Hassan asked, the plan is mainly a phased infrastructure project. However, all other aspects of relief and recovery are suppressed. The questions to the panelists is, does this plan have any chance of success when the other aspects of relief and recovery are neglected? Social, psychological, as you mentioned, Omar, revival of human capital, and education and health, as you mentioned, Abdelhadi, does it have a chance of succeeding? Thanks, Dr. Hassan, for this. Inas, I move to you, and please also reflect on this input before I move to Abdelhadi.
Yeah, thank you, Ala and Omar Abdelhadi. I will address the question in my second point. I have really two points I wanted to make. The first one is, I think we need to take a bit of a zoom out and think that all of these discussions around plans of reconstruction, etc., take for granted that Israel would be a good faith actor. And we still see it in political statements, in diplomatic statements. The fact of the matter is that we're seeing over and over again over decades that Israel's trajectory and plan is to colonize Palestine and either expel or kill Palestinians. And so we're still in that today. And the problem is that the Arab League plan and the power, again, like it's the one that has the most political backing from states. And the problem is that, again, it takes for granted that Israel, which is in control, which controls all the borders and the resources and the infrastructure and what goes in and out, would be agreeing to this plan to move forward. And history has shown us that they're not, and they haven't. And we're here now today where they have clearly broken and collapsed the ceasefire when months and months ago, multiple times, Hamas had agreed to multiple proposals of ceasefires. And then the ceasefire was done on the US terms. And then they broke it again with US green light. And so I think the international community has a tremendous responsibility here because they're rushing to do fundraising conferences and donor conferences to pull billions into reconstruction. But we've been there and it has failed because Israel has imposed a blockade and a siege. It has prevented humanitarian aid from entering and it continues to be the case. So I think that eventually, and to the question also of the participants, clearly the US and Israel are trying to replace even the existing humanitarian system. They're trying to undermine UNRWA. They're trying to undermine the UN system and the INGOs. That now there is a law that they need to abide, like they need to recognize the Jewish and democratic states and other absurd things like that to be functioning, to replace them by private actors that would be supported by the UAE and others. So I think we need to see this dynamic because they are very concretely impacting what's happening on the ground. The other, I think, aspect is coming back to the Palestinian people. I think we need to also look at the fact that many Gazans cannot think like we're here, we're very privileged, we have these discussions and we're thinking big and thinking, towards all of these aspects. But when you don't have food on your table, when you're cold and you don't have a shelter, the primary thing you want is just to be able to live and to survive. And I think that Palestinians in Gaza obviously will accept any sort of plan that puts a roof on their head and some form of sustainability over the coming years. However, if it's done wrongly, like the Egyptian plan and the Arabic plan is proposing, doing this outlandish, urban planning that is consolidating Israeli occupation, in 10, 20 years, we will have again resistance against the occupation, apartheid, and settler colonialism. So that's, I think, what we need to look at now. And we have examples in our history. We're in one of the worst, really, a moment of our history, but we need to look at what happened before. And Abdelhadi has reminded of Oslo. You know, in Oslo, you had, you know, he wrote a book about this, Khalil Tafakji, the cartographer. You know, he was brought in to explain the map and where the settlements are, and told Abu Ammar, there is no two states. And he was dismissed. The Palestinian experts were dismissed because there was political interest into moving forward. And what it has done, it has fragmented us further. We're a broken society where, you know, you live in Haifa, you live in Ramallah, or you live in Gaza, and you don't know your people. We cannot know each other or organize together politically because we're so different because of the colonization. And so Oslo, or the partition plan even, or, you know, further subsequent like reconstruction plans, etc., in the previous sort of wars on Gaza, all of those have consolidated Israel's control and colonial, I think, grip. And so I think it's very important to look that we're in this moment where I don't buy this is the best plan out there. This is not, if it's not a good plan, we have to do another one. And at the center of it is Palestinian unity and Palestinian agency, which is clearly lacking.
Thank you, Anas, for all these points. Abdelhadi, I would like to move to you, but also I would like to remind our audience here that unfortunately you cannot come to the screen and share your insights. If you don't mind, please can you write them in the chat function? I will take the questions as they are written, if you don't mind. Abdelhadi, moving to you for your additional reflections, building on what Inas and Omar just said.
Yeah, I mean, I have here three things to say. I mean, why this plan is different? Let me start, then how it's perceived in Gaza. The plan is actually is not about building Gaza. It's a political, but also try to build economically and security roadmap for the future of Gaza. But is that the future that the Palestinians in Gaza want? This is the question. This remains the question. So it's a comprehensive plan, but it also integrates the reconstruction with governance, economic development, and urban planning. And that's why I'm really a bit worried about this, because the people or experts who put this plan, they are not aware fully what is Gaza and how Gaza look and what is the needs of Gaza and how the history of Gaza in the last 50 years. So, but also it's the this plan is avoid the ethnic cleansing, as I said. But about the perception of Gaza, I mean, as Ines said, I mean, you can't ask people while they are hungry, while they are fearing death every day, what's your opinion about Egypt's reconstruction plan? Because they don't give a shit about this plan. Sorry, my French. And that's exactly what my family doesn't know about this. And we are all educated. We are all work in development in Gaza, my family. And why? Because people there care about other things. And the perception here is you have to accept the fact that Gaza is not one color. Gaza is a very diverse society. You have the people who are affiliated with Hamas. You have people who are oppose Hamas. You have people with Fatah. You have people who want the Palestinian Authority to come back. You have the majority who don't trust Mahmoud Abbas and so on. And that's reflect also on the Egyptian plan. One thing is, and most of the inputs that we got from Gaza actually is from elites, from people who work in this field, and people who are outside Gaza. And I think there is a sense of relief here, but there is a lot of skepticism here, because this plan cannot be implemented based on what we have seen in the 2021, 2014, and 2009, 2008. And most of the reconstruction, like United Nations and so on, when they said like we need 50 years, it's based on how Israel actually acted before and how they expect Israel to act. So if Israel's will doesn't exist, there will be no reconstruction, no plan. So it's like stopping the genocide and moving it from actual genocide to gradual, slow genocide. But the three things here also less than 1 minute. That's Palestinians in Gaza. I think they very skeptical about the or not uncertain about is Hamas rule is unclear, because many people like want Hamas to stay, while others don't want Hamas. And let me but just here explain, because we need to be frank, and since this is open, like I have been talking to many people in Gaza, and I think they were opposing Hamas before. Were anti-Hamas, and in recent genocide they have become more stubborn, like Jakarta. They are supporting that Hamas to stay in Gaza and to govern Gaza. That's just as a way to resist the thing. And then the second one is about Israeli concern. Most of Gaza saying like, okay, what about Israel? I mean, you don't mention what about Israel. I mean, while we are talking now, Israel cut Gaza Strip now into two parts. They like how this possibility in just 1 hour they can do it. And the last one is people like care more about healthcare and education, which the plan doesn't prioritize them, and that's a very shortcoming of the plan.
Thank you, Abdelhadi. I mean, there are multiple issues here to discuss. I would like to bring a comment from Chris. Thanks, Chris, for being with us and for raising your question. I mean, this is also to all, but also building on what you said, Abdelhadi, about the comparison of this plan, the Arab League plan, with other plan. Chris is a member of Palestine Emerging Plan, which I mentioned earlier as we started the conversation, and also author of Connected Gaza 2016. Chris says many of the plans have overlapping positive characteristics. What do you think the most important aspects are? How to address interim conditions during hazards rubble removal, interim spatial plan? And thanks, Chris, for this. And before I move to Abdelhadi or to others, I do wonder if there is any conversation at all between the 12 plans that I mentioned or referred to earlier on, or if everyone works in silo. That's really, by looking at the different plans that we have, I sense, or I would argue, that there was no plan. If anything, there was a sense of competition. There was a sense who's taking this space and place first, who's gaining that contract first, who's dominating this industry that is emerging. Maybe it's different when it comes to the more Palestinian-led plans, and I will come to that, because there are lots happening in the background by the Palestinian civil society, by different consultations. It is difficult to break through and compete with these other plans, but it is still happening. And there are very clearly spelled out plans there. Look at one example is the Phoenix plan. And that's just one example that requires more and more attention. But also look at the parameters that the Palestinian civil society put out there. But I don't want to lose the focus on Chris's questions, Abdelhadi, about the how to address interim conditions during hazards and rubble removers, for example, and what are the most important aspects of these plans to keep in there, and open to Omar and Inas as well.
I just read a comment with Ma'moon Bseso, who is member of the Palestinian Engineering Syndicate, and they are coordinating the technical aspects. And I think I am not in the position to talk about the technical aspect, but I think the most important aspect of this plan, it has guidelines for reconstruction of Gaza in general. And that's something that we needed in Gaza. It gives a hope. That's the only thing I think in this plan. But of course, if we include Egypt in the reconstruction plan, like in 2021, with international support, international legitimacy, and with the clear plan for the Palestinian Authority to come back, I think this could be a good plan. But in technical level, I think they are better. Yeah.
Omar, Inas, any thoughts on this aspect in particular? Inas, please go ahead.
Yes, I think what was said in the comment is right, that the technical aspects of any reconstruction can be discussed further. But again, we go back to the idea of governance. I think we have to see here that we have Palestinian CSOs, syndicates, engineers, architects who are there. But who are they talking to? We're not actually contributing to our own plans with, a Palestinian representative leadership that then will put our voice out there forward into the international community. We, like every single constituency, is fragmented and tokenized by certain international actors to be representative in different ways and forms. So I think this is the very problem that, again, we go back to the idea that in any country, when you are thinking about reconstructing Paris or Moscow or wherever in the world, you would have eventually a government, a municipality, a government, and then constituencies and civil society that would be involved in the discussions, and then the representative would put forward internationally. This is not the case with us because we are controlled by foreign agendas and by Israel. And so I think this is, again, it can be an opportunity for us to really work on that aspect, but it needs political will from the Palestinian leadership. It needs the international community to take its responsibility in holding Israel accountable and pressuring Israel first and foremost. And to make sure that, again, this is the systematic Palestinian agency we're talking about, because agency and self-determination are not just concepts. There is very, very ways where both Gazans, West Bankers, Palestinians everywhere should be involved in all of this. And unfortunately, it's not by one interest group or another being consulted by Egypt to decide that will be a solution for us as a whole and as a people. So I think this is fundamentally the problem that we have at stake right now. And then, of course, we can then develop plans with where culture and environment and all of that is taken into account. The final comment I want to say is that we've been colonized for so long and we've been occupied for so long that also our political forces, even our technocratic forces, we have lost that also culture of even having an ideology around what kind of society do we want. Some people think that proposing to do a Dubai in Gaza is a great idea. I don't think so. I think it really is completely erasing Gaza's culture, Gaza social fabric, Gaza society, and generally what is the very fabric of our own culture and society. And I think, we have lost that ability because, again, in ministries of the PA, and elsewhere in also other expertise circles, many people who are there are not bad people. They have good intentions, but they're also being influenced by World Bank, consultants and UNDP consultants for, again, so many years. And so I think we have lost that ability to really look at what is it that we want for ourselves and for our people and society to be both unified and sustainable.
Thank you, Inas, for these points. I will come back to this question of how we can ensure a Palestinian ownership in all of this, and if we can hope for a Palestinian-led reconstruction process. But before I move to Omar, let me bring in here two inputs from two engaged actors. Thank you, Dr. Ali Shaat and Dr. Ma'moun Bseiso, for being with us and for your comments. And I would like to read these two comments because they are crucial when it comes to the operationalization of aspect of this Arab League flag. From Dr. Ma'moun Bseiso, he says the Palestinians developed rubble removal plan, and this will be annexed to the plan, to the Arab League plan. Same for other sectors. So what we have on the table is just a draft for political reasons and to bring funds. After the international conference that Omar referred to earlier, we have our own technical plans to be implemented, not the Egypt plans. Thanks for this crucial input. And from Dr. Ali Shah, he said, please be advised that the Palestinian side is working on action plan to accompany the Egyptian plan or the Arab League plans. The Egyptian plan, the Arab League plan for Gaza is just a roadmap for extensive planning efforts that we are carrying out in Palestine. I was personally part of the national counterpart of Connecting Gaza 2025, working with Chris, and this is why I ask about collaboration and coordination. So thanks for this comment, Dr. Ali, on that. Keeping these two notes in mind, Omar, any additional thoughts from you that you wanted to come in earlier as well?
Yes. There were many plans, but we need to keep in mind key element. Who does the plan? Because who does the plan ensure that this plan will be implemented or be funded? There were some offered by the Palestinian, some different group, but I don't think that they have the ability to get any secure funding. We need to understand. We need to keep in mind this the reconstruction of Gaza is unprecedented process. The war in Gaza in 2014 was estimated in the donors conference, which was held in Cairo in October, was around $6 billion. 50% of that money was supposed to go for the budget support of the Palestinian Authority. We are talking here about $30 to $40 billion. So the question is how we can ensure Emirati or Algeria or Saudi will put some $10 to $20 billion without a political gain. Of course, with those, we need to be realistic. So with all respect to those plans who were developed by local, we need to keep in mind is who does the plan. Second thing, I'm Palestinian, I live in Gaza, exit to Cairo in middle of October, and we are confident that we have the ability, not engineer, and I have developed different paper with the Shabaka, with the IRI about it, but the effort of the reconstruction this time require definitely international support. We don't have the capacity to remove 40 billion tons of rubble. We don't have the capacity to take 10,000 people who are the rubble under the rubble. We don't have the capacity how to use this rubble either in the sea or not. It's a very complicated thing. We need international support, and we cannot do this by our own. So the plan is important, but more important is who does this plan. That's what I think. This why I believe the Egyptian coordination with the Palestinian Authority is a must, because both can get funding, and nobody will put any dollar in Gaza without through other channels. Everybody's talking about it. This is why I think Emirati and the Saudi did not attend the Arab Summit on the 4th of March, because the plan did not have a clear vision about the question were raised by Bilhadi and Dinas about the governors, about that. But we need to keep in mind the plan and the bilateral negotiation. I think there is an agreement between Hamas and Egypt that Hamas will not be in the governors. Hamas said this several times, but we need the 40,000 employees of the de facto authority who have been running the show in Gaza for the 17 years. And of course, we need another 10 to 15,000 Palestinian authority since 2007. So we could not think only technically. We should understand what's going on. Thank you.
And that's a very important point. And here where I would like to bring the comment from Raja Khalidi, director of MAS in Ramallah, again, connecting the previous comments, the one coming from Chris. And this is also, as I tried to do earlier in the framing of this webinar, that there are different visions, they have overlapping elements, but also some of them ignore the fact, or like in particular here, the comment earlier by Chris, that ignores that each of these visions plans has different political assumptions, goals, and agenda. For example, Palestine Emerging and Gaza Connect, I guess, for example, presume to be wholly technical and avoid any political commitment to the future. Other United Arab Emirates plan is effectively neo-colonial capitalist takeover of Gaza, and Rand explicitly endorses an independent Palestinian state. That's another one, and there is another plan from Rand. This is why I think it's really important to compare, contrast, and have dialogue between these different plans, not to reconcile them, and not to rank them, and not to have a score card of these plans, but they serve different purposes. It is like the aid industry at large. You have in previous works, we categorize them in 4 different categories. And it is important to understand that the reconstruction plans also wants to serve different purposes, from erasing the Palestinians to be neo-colonialists to be extremely technical or be extremely Palestinian-led, Palestinian-owned. And that is, I hope, self-evident for us, that this is the only way to succeed. And here where I want to move back to Inas, when we talked about Palestinian ownership of these plans and leadership as well, what are some of these important prerequisites to ensure that Palestinians own these plans and they lead them? Can we hope for a Palestinian-led reconstruction process, considering what we've been discussing over the past hour?
So I think it is indeed the crux of the problem. For so long, because we don't have a unified representative movement, we have to realize that, the PLO has been completely hollowed out. The PA, which was supposed to be an interim body, has taken over the political representation of the Palestinian people, where in fact it should be technical administration administering services for the people in the interim of, you know, getting to Palestinian self-determination. That reality is the de facto reality we have now, which has entrenched Israeli control. The PA is subservient to Israeli goodwill, into Israeli control and decision-making when it comes to importing, exporting, natural resources, etc. And so I think the problem that all of that has led to is that because the vast majority of the Palestinian people are in opposition to whoever is, you know, on the official tables as representing the Palestinian people, and it is just me saying this, it's polls, right? But public opinion polls, and generally Palestinians are, you know, want a renewed political system, but this is denied to them, both from the current Palestinian leadership, but also international interests, again, which are prompting the very survival of a system that is you know, serving Israeli interests at the end of the day. And so I think like we're in there where when we talk about Palestinians have been consulted, I don't think that when I or PAPD is being consulted in something, Palestinians have been consulted. I think that would be very bad faith. And I think that's the problem, is that many people say that Palestinians, you know, are involved. Yes, some Palestinians are involved, but at the end of the day, who represents Palestinians to take decisions that are tremendously impacting our entire, you know, people's present and future is not legitimate people. And so I think we are here in the really crux of the problem. The Arab League plan and the process that is ongoing right now, and what needs to happen in terms of pressuring Israel for permanent ceasefire and ending the genocide, is when either we make it to transform the Palestinian political system, you know, and have like a really representative system, or it will fail, and we again will continue to segment and to cement fragmentation of the Palestinians, and everyone will be a spokesperson to Palestinians saying a different thing than the other. And I think this has been the problem. And I would say that when we talk about civil society, there's not one civil society. Some people think it's NGOs, but it's also engineers, it's unions, it's journalists, it's everyday people. That is civil society. And the vast majority, again, of that civil society is requesting and wants a change and have a unified political leadership. And we have basis for that, the Beijing Declaration and Reconciliation, that has to be widened for the transformation of the PLO, so that any sort of table like that with the Arab League or with the US or with the West will be where Palestinian voice is effectively represented. And I think that's really the crux of the problem. And that are the red lines. That is what the Palestinian civil society in its wider understanding of the term is requesting.
Thanks, Inas, for bringing the political aspect to the core of all of this, because the question is, okay, how these initiatives from the civil society will trickle up and will be heard, will occupy that space, will push these boundaries. And that's really the difficult part. But fundamentally, there are political processes, they are political demands, it's a political engagement and action that also brings accountability and change to the leadership. But I want to stop there on the red lines that you mentioned. And Abdelhadi, I want to move to you before I come back to Inas and Omar on the civil society aspect. What are the red lines here of the Palestinian Authority or of Hamas? Because linking it earlier with what we mentioned, when it comes to the reconstruction process. I know this is a big question, but some of the important red lines that we need to keep in mind, considering all the different aspects. And I want to thank all the audience for all the engagement and all the comments. I'm doing my best to bring these voices in, and I will continue after Abdelhadi.
Oh,
red
wow.
lines.
Red lines. I mean, it's remind me of the German chancellor in 90s when he said in the parliament, "Ohne mich lasst nicht," and it means without me nothing work. And I think here both of them, actually, the Palestinian Authority and Hamas, have already put their deadlines. From Hamas side, you can see clearly that without us, you will not govern. Without us, you will not be able to control Gaza. Without us, you will not do that. So Hamas is clear. They give the Palestinian Authority through Egypt to take over, to control Gaza Strip, but to consult them behind the tables, to that Hamas can agree on the committees, on members, because Hamas, they still believe that they are having the majority, they have the legitimacy of the Palestinian people, they are the ones that lead the Palestinian struggle, and that's understandable in many ways in the Palestinian society. And that's why the Hamas will not allow a total Palestinian control of the Gaza Strip without real partnership. Even this partnership, I'm using this term partnership, but at least to be in the back, to be at least have a say, to have a word on the future of Gaza. They don't want to lose what they have been built in the last 25 years. For the Palestinian Authority, and it is very clear, which is the tough, and I wouldn't say the Palestinian Authority, because there is a clear measure for Mahmoud Abbas, let's say, frankly, because the Palestinian Authority now, it's represented by President Mahmoud Abbas, who have control over judicial system, who have over the executive branch, who have power over legitimacy branch. So he is the one who says yes or no. And the red line for them is no to Hamas.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want Hamas to govern. They even didn't accept most recent one that Hamas public civilian civil servant to be part of the Palestinian Authority in the first and second phase. In the future, yes, but not in the first. And that's for the Palestinian Authority. Also the resistance or the according to Hamas resistance artillery weapons سلاح المقاومة is unquestionable. The Palestinian Authority, they said it's one weapon, and it's the Palestinian security apparatus weapon, and without any other resistance or non-resistance. And I think these red lines, they kill any possibility for agreement. Let me just last 15 seconds. Hamas and Palestinian Authority, PLO, now, let's say at this time, PLO, have two parallel programs. They will never meet, especially after the genocide in Gaza. And this is going to be troubling for the Palestinian future and the future of the whole Palestinians everywhere. And they need to have an Arab will, or if there is, to control the local whims of the Palestinian leadership.
Omar, do you want to come in on this, on red lines? Before I would like to ask more about the civil society, but any additional thoughts to what Abdelhadi just mentioned?
Yeah, there are many red lines. One of them is the reconstruction. It should be a reconstruction for the whole political system, for the whole community. I mean, we have been going this for the many years, and many of the infrastructure were built and destroyed and built and destroyed. And I have tackled this several times, Ala, with you and with others about we need to get out of this cycle of reconstruction and the rebuilding. So we need to do something under building back better. Which kind of the Gaza? I'm very angry and very upset with all the plans because they did not talk about the old neighborhood of Gaza. How we can maintain the heritage. Gaza is one of the oldest city in the world. One of the oldest city in the world. It has so many heritage. The first challenge is how we can build that. Second, of course, we don't need the reconstruction, Ala, to be as a tool to deepen the divide. We need all the Palestinians to be part. And we can talk about this part, about this point later. We need to differentiate between two things, about consultation, about engagement. Maybe they can consult with us, but we need how to engage our people. And in the paper that I shared with you and my colleague in the Arab Reform shared with us, I proposed something in May, 1 year ago, how to bring people to the process of reconstruction. We want them into the train. We should not leave them. This is very important. Otherwise, we should not leave our people behind. We need everybody. We need the 7 million Palestinians outside, because this time 200 Palestinian professors were killed, 300 journalists were killed, too many. There are 400 doctors in Cairo. 150 of them are surgery. Shifa Hospital doesn't have doctors. There are 600 civil society people in Gaza, in Cairo. There are 300 journalists. So I don't want to say the elite of the elite or the competent people, but no, the agent of change and the agent of reconstruction are here and outside. So we need the Gazan who used to work with the de facto because they are there. We need the people in Cairo, and we need the people from outside. Not only the money, we need the money of the Palestinian diaspora, and we need their expertise. There was in a session, I think, not with Inas, but with other people from America, told them, don't speak to us as if you are not part. You are integrated part. You need to think now how we can. About education, for example, we had a session before with Arab Reform about education. How we can link, how we can develop the education. 400,000 students have lost 2 years of their education. 90,000 are in the higher education. 39,000, this is a very accurate statistic, 39,000 people, were not able to go the Tawjihi last year. 50,000. So how we can build, how we bring Arab universities, how we can bring the Palestinian diaspora. These are the red lines. So reconstruction is not about building the building, building the people, building the building, building the society, building Gaza as it was, and much better, and maintaining the very nice heritage of Gaza, the church. In Gaza, there is a church old 1,300 years, 1,500. How we can keep that? Thank you.
And also, it is about rebuilding and reinventing the political framework, the political structures, the political system that Inas talked to. And here, when you talked about the distinction between consultation and engagement, it also extends to the Palestinian people and where they are in the political system. They are neither consulted nor engaged in the political system. So, and this political or this reconstruction process is another example where they are. And here I just would like to, Diana Shaat asked, does the Arab plan take into consideration the existing municipal master plans and ownership? And I see in the chat earlier on, Dr. Bseiso mentioned earlier that there is high level of collaboration between the Egyptian and Palestinian engineering syndicates, including the that this plan by the municipality was offered to the technical plan, and also this is something that is coming, as I understand from Dr. Bseiso here. So thank you for clarifying that. But Inas and Omar, I know the time is. But this is extremely rich conversation. But I would like also to go to your engagement with different building on the red plan on the red lines, but also on what you've mentioned earlier. You've been part of different conversations and leading different efforts by civil society groups here about this reconstruction plan, be it with MAS or be it with the NGO network or others. So what are some of the key messages that are emerging from these conversations? What are some of these key messages related to the questions of ownership, questions of the basic demands that you talked about, Omar, the political nature of engagement that you talked about, Inas? What shall we fundamentally keep in mind based on your engagement with that? Omar, and then we'll move
Thank you, Ana. I'll say three messages, and of course give time to Hadi and Inas. One, we need to engage the young people. This war has left thousands of young people without jobs. So we need to create jobs. How we can create jobs? We need to include them into the process. So they own it. They need to be constructive. In the 2014, I developed a paper with Dr. Sultan in Brookings that we need to bring a Palestinian Reconstruction Council where everybody is there. The World Bank, but also the Palestinian political factor and the civil society. They need to be part of doing something positive. Second, they need to have a say in how to develop their own things. The civil society organization, which has been very old and very prominent and very strong, they need to be part. We cannot be left alone. We have a huge network of young people. 62% of the Gazan are young people under 30. So they need to be there. Third, the process should prepare the way for a better political action. Allah, everybody knows that, which I propose it to all the international. We need to think about election in 2027. Hopefully the war is on tomorrow, but the plan, which I myself developed, we need to reconstruction 2 to 3 years, and we need to know there will be election. And the key word in this circumstances is hope. Let me talk politics and be frank. Hope. If the Palestinian, the 20,000 orphan, the 8,000 widow, the 86,000 amputated children lost their legs and hands is the largest number of amputated children in such a small place in the history. 86,000. Who's going to take care of these people? So we need to bring into them, and we need to allow them to be positive actor for the better future. So they need to be ready for, let me finish by what I meant by hope. If the people in Gaza did not see that their suffering will end in 3 years, then they will go to Somalia by themselves, or they will go to be more radical. So no stability, and we will have another war or maybe another attack. So reconstruction is a must, is a very, very important, constructive, instrumental tool for building a better future. That's why the Palestinian in Gaza should be part of everything, the planning, the implementation, the monitoring, everything, and they need to benefit out of this. They don't want to see the money going in their eyes like the gas in Nigeria or our gas in the Mediterranean, which also we spoke about it before. We were living in Gaza in dark, and we were seeing the flames of the gas in the Mediterranean. I mean, this is totally destructive. Thank you very much.
Very clear. Inas.
Yes, two things. I think on the important point of Omar about consultation and engagement, I sit in Ramallah and I very well see how things play out. Unfortunately, again, there is like these consultations, and because of the Oslo system and regime, you have like the PA and donors and so on who will listen to some of the NGOs and civil society, but at the end of the day, where is the actual governing mechanism that is the one that has several representatives from all of these constituencies, whether it's municipalities in Gaza and engineers unions and NGOs and human rights groups? All of those should be part of a temporary mechanism, which is needed before we can move to the necessary step of elections or transforming the actual political system more profoundly. But there is no political will from Mahmoud Abbas and his allies and the international community. So again, we're looking at outside saying that if you're really serious about building a just, a present and future for the Palestinians, one, you hold Israel accountable and you force Israel to allow us to organize ourselves. Because again, we have so many of our friends in prison. We have so many of our friends who are intimidated and harassed. The resistance is crashed, including by the PA. All of that is because the Palestinian people will continue to fight for their dignity, for not only their survival, but also their rights. And I think we're at the crux of this problem. So one, temporary mechanism that needs to be much wider than just the PA and Mahmoud Abbas and his people. And second, then move really to push pressure for this transforming of the PLO. And there are initiatives out there for that, but it is very, very essential. And the last thing that I want to say is that no one, I think in this conversation, we have not also reminded that 70% of Gazans were refugees from 1948. The right of return needs to be also at the center of any plan. It has been completely put under the table and under the carpet during Oslo. And we're seeing now this happening now, where Palestinians have been displaced twice, made refugees twice, and sometimes 16 times now within Gaza. The fact of the matter is many of them don't come from Gaza originally. They should be able to be in Gaza, but also they should be able to return to their homes. It is a Palestinian issue. It is a Palestinian question that we need to solve. And again, on our end, the political leadership has an opportunity right now to do that, but it won't happen without external pressure and understanding that if they play into Israeli agenda and into this fragmentation agenda, the things will continue to remain the same. And it is primarily the Gazans who really lost everything, including, as he said, legs and family members and so on, that will be paying the really the most dire price.
Thank you, Inas. Abdelhadi, any other thoughts? I see a question from Rola here. Rola Rifai, thanks. Do any of these reconstruction plans propose or assume a buffer zone with Israel? Yes, I don't know if you can see this, but most likely not. I see it as but if you here, well, if you look at the plan, there is a very big segment that is beautifully green, but it is problematic in many other senses because it's again shrinking the space more and more for the Palestinians and offering larger space of buffer for that. Forensic architect, I guess, they did some interesting and important analysis of that to see that actually this buffer zone is expanding. And it assumes that no people live there. It assumes zero local ownership of these lands, and it's as if they can do whatever they want in the master plan. So this is why we need to have this dialogue and to have this conversation, not only at the political side, but also at the implementation and operational side. So I'm glad to hear that there are still things happening in the background in the lead for the conference, but these conversations need to be taken to the next level, to the policy level, to be impacting them and to hold these actors also accountable. It is the future of the Palestinians that matters, and this is why they need to own it. I'm aware that there are still a number of questions that we didn't tackle, and we're running out of time, but maybe one last question to everyone here. If you can list your three top considerations, like top three considerations or principles or rules of thumbs that ensures a more inclusive, effective reconstruction approach that ensures the Palestinian agency in all of that and the Palestinian leadership, but importantly, that make them closer to freedom and liberation, because this is the fundamental part. And thanks, Inas, for the very clear reminder that right of return is the right that needs to be brought to the center. So what if you want to leave the audience here and our collective thinking process with a couple of points from each of you? How do we ensure a more inclusive reconstruction process? Abdelhadi.
Yeah, because I need to go to say this and then to go. I have to go to the airport. I'm flying in 2.5 hours. Beside what Enes and Omar said, I think which focus on the political solution. We cannot do anything without political solution. Just solution for the Palestinians: return of refugees, Palestinian state, two-state solution, one-state solution. We need political solution. But two important things to make it inclusive is, one, we need to shift from donor-led to Palestinian-led decision-making. But now also we need to move from mediators-led to Palestinian-led decision-making. And I mean here, a national reconstruction body led by Palestinians should be coordinating these efforts. And this include women, youth, civil society organizations, experts, diaspora, and academics, and so on. This is a priority. And second, we need to prioritize the creation of local workforce and economy. And I mean here local Palestinian contractors, engineers, and workers, but also to establish the factories that instead of importing raw material from outside, we can create these industries within Gaza to supply the reconstruction efforts. This is somehow to create jobs, to also establish a local material production pipelines that help the Palestinians for sustainable work. Yeah, that's my points. You are muted.
Sorry, Omar. Thanks, Abdelhadi, and safe flights. Omar.
Thank you. Key messages, Ala, which is very important. One, Palestinian unification. Palestinian unification. I mean, this is too much. 17 years of divide. Our cause has been weakened. Palestinian Authority should be more proactive, should make serious effort to reconcile, and they should understand and believe that all the Palestinians should be included in the process. So I use this webinar to send the message to our leadership in Ramallah. They should not wait for Gaza to come on its knees. So Palestinian unification linked with the reconstruction. Second, Palestinians should not blame the others. We need to be proactive. We have to write articles, and we have to be a part, and we need to discuss with everybody, and we need to come together. I mean, why we blame the others while we don't do our job? For example, the Palestinian diaspora, why not? There are some very good initiatives when it comes to education, but we need to do more as a Palestinian. So we should not allow others to intervene in our things. Third is the Palestinian ownership of the process, where the Palestinian companies from West Bank, from Gaza, must be part of the reconstruction. And my final point about reconstruction should be part of a roadmap towards better future. Election must be part of that. Must be part of that. So this will encourage other countries like Algeria, Emirates, Germany, and others to contribute to reconstruction. Thank you.
Thank you, Omar. Inas, final word with you.
Okay, so the final word, then I will focus on the international community, because I do subscribe to the big priority around Palestinian unification, and this is the responsibility of all factions, really, and it's really the core of the problem. The international community. Look, I think again we have history in the past of how things have gone. We cannot put forward any political process or any process for discussions around ceasefire or reconstructions that are not addressing the root causes. And the root causes are that Palestinian self-determination, the end of the occupation, the end of apartheid are all inscribed in international law. It's a legal obligations. Countries are actually, at the moment, complicit. They are complicit in not preventing genocide and failing to impose sanctions on Israel and holding Israel accountable for not ending the occupation. Any process that fails to put that as a base, like we have seen in Oslo, like we have seen in other negotiations, will fail to bring forward a present or future, and Palestinians will continue to resist, if not today, tomorrow, in 10 years, will reemerge in resisting such an unjust system. So I think this is really the core of the problem, that the international community, especially the West and Israeli allies that have leverages in the financial sector, in the trade sector, in the political sector and military, to put that pressure on our occupier, and to make sure that any political process is ensuring Palestinian self-determination and political unity, and removing Israeli control.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Inas, Omar, and Abdelhadi, for this important list of considerations, of principles, of rule of thumbs. And this is really very clear and very explicit, and they need to be taken seriously. And thank you all for the very engaged audience with us today. I did my best. I tackled around and engaged with around 40 comments, questions, feedback. I apologize for the 10 pending remaining issues. I wish we had more time, but this is just very clear that this is a conversation to be continued, and work that we jointly, collectively need to do to be Palestinian-led, because this is what matters, and Palestinian-owned by a collective that represent the Palestinians. And this is why we talk here about reinventing political process and political system. But as I started with, in ideal world, this reconstruction plan should be an outcome of a national dialogue that is importantly missed. And this is how we can ensure leadership and legitimacy of any process, be it related to the reconstruction or to the political process at large. I apologize that we took extra times. Omar, Inas, Abdelhadi, thank you so much for all the valuable insights, for making the analysis very explicit and very clear. Thank you for the team of the Arab Reform Initiatives and for the team of translators with us. And thank you for all the audience and participants. This is a conversation to be continued. And thank you all very much for being with us today.
Thank you.